transition to life in America. Malachy McCourt talked about his life then and now during an appearance at Politics and Prose bookstore in Washington, D.C. A warning, this event contains strong language that may be unsuitable for children.
Over there. Hi, everyone. I'm Jana Coleus, the events coordinator for Politics and Prose. And on behalf of Carla Cohen and Barbara Mead, the owners, I'd like to welcome you all here tonight. It's wonderful to have Malachy McCourt here for A Monk Swimming. It's impossible not to like this book. I'm laughing because I'm thinking about so many parts of it. Malachy is indeed the prodigal son. When you read this book, you'll know that means that's actually a very accurate description. The book is full of memories. I mean, starting really in 1952 when he arrives in New York, and it's full of events and people and color. And this is a man who's lived a full life. And I was left with the distinct impression that, tell me if I'm wrong, that this is a man who has not really spent 5 minutes alone in his entire life. I'm convinced. But anyway, it's a joy to read, and I personally have just been so looking forward to Malachy being here in person because the book reads as if he is there in person, and so I know this is going to be just a very special evening. So that's it. Welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for coming and being here tonight.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Jenna. And I'm glad to be in Washington at the, especially as that the crowd that usually runs the town, they're all out of town now. And they're all gone back telling all the wonderful tales about what they're going to do for the country when they come back to Washington and start the cocktail circuit again. I'm going to read a trifle or two for you, and then God knows. I have to catch an airplane at about 9 o'clock or so, so if I make a mad and uncontrolled dash for the door, it doesn't mean that I'm incontinent. The sight is failing, not from any disease, just from age, so I have to wear spectacles. Did you hear about the two monocles that got together and made a spectacle of themselves? Sorry about that. That was dreadful. I was always apt in my life, for some odd reason, to employ, shall we say, very bizarre solutions to simple problems. And this is an example of a bizarre solution to an extremely simple problem. And as the tale unfolds, you will see why I speak thus. McGill of Clavins, between visits to exclusive asylums and time spent behind the bar, had bought a car that was causing him great annoyance and inconvenience with parking and the general responsibility for a large, helpless, inanimate object, totally dependent on him for care, maintenance, fuel, registration, and all that stuff. I had offered to look after it for him so long as outside of petrol I'd have no financial outlay. I had learned how to operate a car from a southern lunatic named Robinson Carlton Jones when we were both concrete inspectors on the Jersey Turnpike. Take alternate routes. So when McGill offered me the use of his car, it was like another bit of the American dream unveiled. I thought the whole population of this New York metropolis was looking at me, driving this white Chevrolet with the tail fins and saying, "Hasn't that Malachy McCourt come a long way since he left the lanes of Limerick? Look at him, actually driving a motor car around the streets of New York. If they could only see me in Limerick now, they would be sorry for all the things they did to me when I was younger." I, like every resentful urchin, had visions of dying and lying in a coffin with hordes of stupid big people who had abused me, queuing up to weep and cry out their remorse. And somehow or another I would, though dead, communicate to them that it was too feckin' late. I'd say feckin' because you can't say fuck in heaven. And they would leave my coffin side to live out their lives weeping and unforgiven and vowing never to do it again to other urchins of the lane. But it was better than that to be driving a motor car through the romantic streets. After 5 months of this useless possession of a car, McGill sent word that the repossessed lads were on the prowl, as he'd overlooked a small matter of monthly payments. He was going to spirit the thing out of New York to avoid seizure. Our rendezvous was some pretentious little orifice in a wall on the east side in the 50s at around 9:30 p.m. A series of visits to other joints in advance put me in a jovial mood. It was a wintry night, with temperatures low, old snow on the ground, and the stars frozen in place. I breezily entered the premi and proceeded to the altar, and being a man of business, promptly ordered the double Irish whiskey, sans ice, with a fraction of agua on the side in case of sudden dehydration or any other aquatic emergency. The presiding prelate did not return my warm greeting with any enthusiasm, nor did he make any move toward the orderly array of bottles behind him to fulfill my liquid request. "You have to check your coat," says he. "Why is that?" says I. "Because we have a dress code here, and that's the rule." I'd heard of the Morse code, sacred codes, military codes, codes of honor, codes of ethics, but the term dress code had to enter the ear hole slowly, as it was a stranger in my lexicon. Flippantly, I told the keeper of the dress code that I was not wearing a dress. Like the dumpy Dowager Victoria, the chap was not amused. So buckling down to the urgent matter at hand, i.e. securing the drink, I explained to this dour curate that I was meeting a friend, did not intend to stay the night in these inhospitable environs, was needed to keep me in good spirits. I knew all was lost when the glum one informed me that they didn't stock Irish whiskey, and no matter how long I was staying, the outer garment must hang on a hook in a little cubbyhole rather than grace my back. Or, as he expressed it more succinctly, "You're gonna check your coat." At the time, I was still of a mind that the USA was a place where reason, decency, and open intelligence were the normal modes of thought and action. For God's sake, 'twas barely a decade since Il Duce and the Führer had been hung up and put down respectively, and were we going to behave like feckin' fascists over overcoats? A Socratic flow bubbled from my lips. "My good fellow, since it is my overcoat, and I'm not of a mind to give it into the custody of strangers, and it doth not do harm to your furniture or equipment, aesthetically it is not displeasing, since its texture is of the veil of cashmere, and its hue doth not clash with your somewhat hideous decor, which coincidentally ought to be checked somewhere, preferably in a slurry pit on a pig farm. Yes, and furthermore, and the unanswerable triumphant finale of my dialogue, I loudly and emphatically trumpeted, "Are you in the business of selling whiskey for dollars or checking coats for quarters?" I searched the vast bovine face of the niggling obstructionist, stick-to-the-rules, arsehole facsimile of an American for dawning understanding of my argument for coats at bars. His response, "I told ya, you're gonna check your coat." Dudgeon of a high nature lifted me off the stool and out into the night, muttering, swearing, and loosing profanities about first-class ocean-going arseholes. Plunking myself in the McGill hot rod, I reviewed the events of the preceding 15 minutes and cogitated on how life can turn from being cheerful, warm, and cozy to negative in a sec. And all it takes is us handing the power of happiness over to another human being. And here I'd forked it over to a complete stranger of dubious intellect, lacking in ability to comprehend simple facts, and with all the sensitivities of an ass and or a Republican. Action must be taken, says I to myself, there being no other biped in my immediate vicinity to address. It is not easy to doff the garments in the front seat of a motor car, but doff them I did. First the overcoat, then off came the shoes, the odd socks of the bohemian, the trousers, the shorts of the jockey, the short coat, the shirt, and the singlet. I replaced the shoes and the bohemian socks, donned the overcoat arish, that's Irish for again, and 'twas the work of a mo to put the feet on terra firma, stand up, and head back into the pretentious orifice with its exclusionary practices for all its posture as a public restaurant. I proceeded to the bar, amidst the hub and bob of satisfied diners who were happily inhaling the fumes of the cognac and the satisfying smoke of the coffin nails. Others were eagerly awaiting the slab of decomposing meat or the body of the deceased and battered denizens of the sea, whose odoriferous fumes were doused by the judicious employment of sherry, shallots, and garlic. All said diners without overcoats, of course, bullied into shedding them by the imposition of a dress code. By God, sir, I'd show them a dress code, or its opposite. With as breezy a manner as I could muster and behaving as if I'd never set a trotter in the place before, I cheerily addressed the granite head with pebbles for brains, still presiding over the bottles. Would you, says I to him, in the name of Jesus, Mary, and the Holy St. Joseph, in the name of all the saints in heaven, and of Cardinal Spellman, the man who loves to play leapfrog with acolytes, lift the giving hand and pour out 2 measures of the double distilled fruits of the Emerald Isle, so that my parched tonsils won't think I have abandoned them and run off with a woman. The brainless one gazed at me and spake, informing me that he didn't know what I was talking about. There was no fruits in this house, that didn't allow any kind of queer in the house, that he told me before he wasn't going to serve me unless I checked my coat, and that he didn't want no trouble from me or nobody else. As my overcoat was buttoned up to the neck and he couldn't see the bare legs protruding from the hem, I felt safe in assuring him I was willing to now check this troublesome overcoat on condition that the coat check attendant be summoned to fetch same. A diminutive, wrinkle-faced, heavily made-up female reluctantly trudged toward me with ticket in hand and check your coat on her lips. I turned my back to allow her to slide the coat off my nude bod. A nude is when you choose to be seen in the buff. Naked is when you're caught by the irate cuckold and flagrante. Textbooks, please note, as there's a good deal of confusion on this issue. As the coat slid off the bod, and I turned to give the masticating congregation a full frontal view of the complete epidermis. Chest, belly button, the fur of the pube, a reasonable-sized dangler leaning to the right, God forgive me, a somewhat shriveled ball-bearer due to the slight chill, thighs, knees, shins, odd socks and footwear. A silence descended upon the room, much the same, I imagine, as when Jesus bade farewell to his apostles and left the upper room forever at the Last Supper. People formed sitting tableau, caught in the mundane actions of dining. Some were caught with a fork halfway to the food hole. Others had fork in the hole. Some were examining the bill for the usual fraud, which is no doubt the standard at an establishment requiring the checking of coats. There were nose scratchers, ear pullers, leaning on handers, about to leavers, half-stander-uppers, all caught as though the bomb had hit and they had been petrified in place. All were different in act and deed, except for the focus of the peepers. Had I been arrested and put in a criminal lineup, not one soul there could have identified my face. But had I dropped the trousers and exhibited the 3-piece set, fingering me would have been no trouble. In the Western world, men possess a fierce curiosity about each other's wee-wees. The McCourt family motto is fierce when roused, which appears under a pseudo coat of arms with nary a penis in the artwork. But the dangler was far from being roused this eve. Indeed, had it shrunk any further, it would have become a hemorrhoid. Much fear enriched the lives of the munchers the night of my nude lark. One moment there was a hushed silence, all breathing and respiratory activity suspended, motion stopped, and then there was a communal inhalation, followed by bellows, shrieks, and imprecations. God damn, son of a bitch, dirty pervert, flasher. One distinguished English voice bleated, "Mopere, mopere," and a politically aware lad bellowed, "Commie, commie." The hat-check woman was still standing transfixed, holding the coat as if it were the garment just taken off the body of Jesus at Calvary. The nitwit behind the bar had now bounded over the mahogany, but was nonplussed by never having handled a naked man before. Out of the kitchen poured a phalanx of white-clad defenders of America's purity. A high-hatted chef, a small-hatted chef, assorted assistants and some damp Hispanic dishwashers, some bearing pots, others frying pans, and some with very sharp-looking cutting instruments. I had a passing thought that it was my uncircumcised state was the cause of the consternation. And I prayed that there would be no opportunistic moil among my assailants. But the thought soon passed as more troops joined in the assault on my person, bringing larger concerns. All the male diners, egged on by shrieking females, leapt into the fray. Waiters pummeled me, kitchen help bonged my head with resounding pots. Fortunately for me, so many hands were intent on doing me damage that they managed to whack each other as well. A whirling, swirling mass of bods went typhooning toward the door, knocking over tables, bar stools, hysterical women, dinners, pictures on the walls, and all else in its path. There wasn't a swinging door to that entrance, but it seemed as if there were when this teeming mass exited onto the sidewalks of New York. And suddenly, I was on the street, naked and alone. For all my attackers, having done God's work and plunged me into outer darkness, had now returned to the interior to congratulate each other and to relive each one's heroic moment in the battle against communistic mopery. Outside, I was bedeviled by a new and unforeseen problem. Having locked the car and put the keys in the overcoat, there was aught I could do but retrieve the bloody thing. And how was I going to do that? Whilst cogitating this problem, still reasonably flushed and warm from the blood sport just finished, there were native New Yorkers making little detours around this large, naked, red-bearded man standing in the middle of the sidewalk who seemed lost in thought on a frosty, wintry eve. You could almost hear them saying, "Oh, look, there's another large, naked, bearded man lost in thought in the middle of winter on the sidewalks of New York." Now, my dilemma was, should I beseech and beg them for the return of the outer garment, or should I get belligerent and threaten resumption of hostilities? I was beginning to freeze and hadn't time for the former, so hostilities seemed to be the course. 'Twas the work of a mo to open the door, duck the head in, and yell that if my coat wasn't forthcoming, I would come in and wave my wee-wee in their wives' faces. As it so happened, Myrtle, the hat-check girl, was just inside the door, still holding the coat, apparently reliving the horror of seeing a nude man and losing a tip. When I reappeared, she sank slowly to the floor with a low moan. I nipped in and tried to liberate the coat, but by the living Jesus, it appeared as if rigor mortis had set in. Her claws were clasped so tightly on the cloth. Pry and praise I might, she wasn't letting go. So I lifted her and the coat and backed out into the street again. It now appeared as if a hostage situation had developed, and the assorted mob that had assembled for a rapid deployment adopted a placatory demeanor. "Don't hurt her, she's an innocent woman," they called to me, as if I were holding a gun to her noggin, and all I wanted was my coat, and fate being kind gave it back to me. The cold blast of air revived Myrtle, who let go, and not wanting to be seen in public with a man clad only in skin, she fled back into the orifice in the wall posing as a restaurant. I got the keys out, walked to the car, opened the door, locked same, started car, and drove through and scattered the newly revived lynch mob off to the safety of the Coldwater flat in Greenwich Village. So it's very simple, and I'd like to do it again for you this evening. So there you are. Simple problem and a very, very complicated resolution. And that was the story of my life. I always thought that sort of behavior was quite normal. And I'm just beginning to realize that it wasn't quite normal. It might be fun to talk about it, but only in retrospect. And coming from a city of Limerick in Ireland, which was, I was born in Brooklyn, but were taken to Ireland when I was quite young. And that place was just filled with eccentrics. And there were great wits there. We had politicians. Now, this is the political season. I was thinking a lot about it because elections are tomorrow. And we had one man in Limerick named Dan Burke. And over there, as many of you know, people over there stand for office. Here they run, and we know why. Yeah. And so Dan Burke, who stood for the mayor of Limerick, and we'd gotten into the habit of electing our intellectual inferiors to very high office. You've been doing it here for a while, too. And so that's because we had the English for so many hundred years. They would come over there, and they would stand for office, and the Irish people would have to elect these chinless wonders to Parliament. I would have people that come over. This Englishman came over and said, "I was born an Englishman. I have lived an Englishman. With God's help, I shall die an Englishman." Limerick man says, "Jesus, man, don't you have any ambition?" So we would get these people into the Parliament or elect a mayor, and then we would elect our own sort of dopey people. We exchanged one set of dopey people for another. Ours were native. But we had this man named Dan Burke, and he was constantly standing for office, constantly elected. And I collected a bunch of his sayings that he put. I put them all into one speech. I want to give it to you. When you hear them all promising what they're going to do tomorrow, just think of Dan Burke, right? And here's what Dan Burke would say. "Ladies and gentlemen and fellow patriots, welcome to this extinguished assemblage. Let me reiterate what I am about to say. I see before me faces that are not here, and I hope that those who are absent will take particular note of my words today. I also miss some of the old faces I used to shake hands with, and I see before me faces that I thought were dead and buried faces, but thanks be to God, they're alive and voting faces. Though, mind you, too many living people is not good business for the funeral undertakers of Limerick, for they have little children who need shoes too. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, is the poor and the problem of shoes. Now, the poor has always been with me. The poor has always been behind me. The poor has always voted for me, every man, woman, and child. So there's nothing wrong with being poor, so long as you vote for the right man. So it's my fond hope that you remain poor. And I promise that when I am elected, I will put shoes on all the poor, footless children of Limerick. For it's not the poor that tells the lies about me. Oh, no. 'Tis them snobs above in the hill. They have spread scandal about me. They have spread libel about me. They have even made allegations. I ask you, where are those scandalizers? Where are those libelers? Where are those alligators? They even said that if I was hanged for my intelligence, I would die completely innocent. That is a lie. Indeed, half of the lies they tell about me are not true. And the other 3/4 are exaggerated. For I did my bit for Ireland, and I see before me men standing who died for Ireland, and they're walking around without jobs. And I'm going to do something about that, because I myself died for Ireland, and if necessary I will die again and again until I am dead entirely. And when I'm elected, I'm going to make sure there's public lavatories built the length and breadth of Limerick City. And not alone are we going to build urinals for the men, I promise we will construct arsenals for the women. And I thank you for your attention. Wouldn't you vote for him? I would. Well, that's it. That was part of the whole, the use of the language there. There was nothing to divert us. But there was talk and malapropisms, stories, witticisms. You've never heard a joke at all because people couldn't be bothered with jokes because in real life people were funny. They were funny in their daily lives. There was a woman named Mrs. Collins lived next door to us. And every time she threw out a basin of water, she would shout, "Guard the loo!" and out it would come. And one day we were scuffling outside her door, Frank, my brother, myself, and a bunch of the others, and we fell in at her door, crashed in through the door, and they got up and ran, because I was on the bottom, I was left lying there, and she came out, and she was this huge woman with a black shawl, and she looked like an enormous bird of prey, and she let go with a stream of wonderful, right, the invective saying, "If 'tis the way ye come crashing through the portals of my doorway once again, 'tis the way I'll be smashing your countenances." Jesus, I nearly died with the fear. I thought she was going to eat. I went back subsequently, of course. She was all of 4'6", you know. But at that time, with that language, you see, makes people look so big. And then we had a fellow named Gerky McMahon, who was he was just an ordinary man, drove a horse and cart, and he'd never moved out of Limerick, and he would tell stories about how his travels throughout the world. And he was talking about, somebody was talking about boats one day, and he said, "Ah, is it boats you're talking about? Sure wasn't I on them clipper ships going around the world long before any of yous were born? And I remember one time going around the Cape of Good Horn on one of them clipper ships. And the captain said to me, 'Gerky, get up to the top of the mast and light the storm lantern.' 'Aye, aye, sir,' says I, because if I said no, he'd hang me from that mast, him being an Englishman and a Christian. I clambered up the rigging and I got that storm lantern lit, and it was a good job too, for by now a great storm has come up from the South Pole, obliterating the face of the moon, and you can't see a star for love nor sausages. And the wind was howling like a banshee, and it was time for me to get down out of there. Well, a third of the way down the mast, didn't a great blast of wind come and whirl all the sails away into the blackness of the night, like poor souls being sucked into eternity, God save the mark. And the wind was howling, and the mast was bucking back and forth. The waves is coming this way, the wind is coming this way, and I'm trying to stay where I am. Inching me way down, foot by foot, I got down to the bottom of the mast, and there's the frigging ship gone. I'll tell you, I wouldn't have missed it for the world. So anyway, any questions of low literary quality? I'll be delighted to answer anything that you might say as much as possible. Yes, Club?
Is Mike going to pick up where you left off?
My brother Michael, is he going to pick up where I left off? Mike says, he's the third brother alive. He said he's not doing anything. At the moment, he said he's going to do a pornographic film, which is Debbie Does Limerick. And he's going to write his memoir when we're all dead, because he wants the last word. Yes, sir.
Good Morning America had a skit which was so good they replayed it again with the four of you, all slightly inebriated and singing and marching through Limerick.
Oh, yeah, well, actually, we weren't inebriated. Three of us, no. I haven't had a drink since they invented the funnel. But anyway, three of us don't drink. I haven't had a drink in 14 years, and neither have two of my brothers. My brother Frank has a... that was CBS Sunday Morning.
Yeah, Charles Carroll,
Yeah, that was, yeah.
What about blowing that up into a video that, using it as one of the bases and having the whole family history on a video?
Well, there is that. My son Connor, who is a New York City cop, has already made that. It's called The McCourts of Limerick. It was on Cinemax on St. Patrick's Day, and he's got another one coming out called The McCourts of New York. So they will be on sale, yeah, in a couple of months. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What's it
like for a storyteller in the oral tradition to write a book?
Uh,
The first thing you've written.
this is the first thing I've written, yeah.
It's tremendous.
Well, I couldn't wait to see what I had to say. It was very strange because I don't type, you see, and I have these pens, and which I love. I love pens. So I have this symbiotic relationship. So I was just writing and writing and writing and writing and writing, and I was supposed to write 80,000 words. So the editor at Hyperion rang me up, and she said, Maureen, Malachy, she said, now 80,000 words. I said, don't worry about a thing, Maureen. Maureen O'Brien is her name. Because I said, there's lots more to come. She said, no, stop. You have written 125,000 words, and you're 45,000 words over, so we have to edit that down. So there is, like, I'll have to be edited tonight, you know. This is C-SPAN here, you know. So they're going to have to edit me. So anyway, it's a strange, it's just, I just go sit and talk to myself, and I wonder, is this amusing me? And if it isn't, I won't, you know, I'll discard it. And I don't edit, I really don't edit or anything like that. Just write it now and say, that's good, that's good, that's good. And then people say, the critics, they're wonderful. That Malachy McCourt, he's no Frank McCourt. And this, among swimming, it's no Angela's Ashes. Jesus, I didn't know that. So I tell him now that next Tuesday, I'm going to be Frank McCourt and I'll write Angela's Ashes. Yes, sir.
Does the prophet have any honor in Limerick?
Does the prophet have any honor in Limerick? Well, Irish Alzheimer's is, we forget everything but the grudge. And there are people in Limerick who take a grave exception to what Frank wrote, particularly about Limerick in those days. And as they say, denial, they don't know denial is not a river in Egypt. And so some people take it. We went over there. They wouldn't let us into secondary school. At least they wouldn't let Frank into the high school there, the secondary school, because we were from the slums and we had the wrong accent and our arses were out through our trousers and we had scabby knees and snotty noses and all of that. And so they wouldn't let him into the Christian Brothers there, but they gave him an honorary doctorate at the university. So he leapt over that, you know. And even though you're still, you know, in your memory, you're still a snotty-nosed, scabby-kneed gutter snipe from the lanes of Limerick. And they promised, a guy was organising, he said, they had 20,000 signatures protesting this, honouring Frank like that, and that they were going to have a book burning. So I said to Frank, is it going to be a hardcover? You know, you have to be practical at this age. So we had never been to a book burning. I'd seen them and the Nazi pictures, and I'd seen pictures of the Boston book burnings. I was really looking forward to it. And you know what? Then there was no book burning. Not a solitary book was burned. Not alone are they bigoted, but they're liars as well. If you're going to have a book burning, for Christ's sake, keep your promise. But you see, there's a kind of respectability that comes over people, and they don't want to be reminded. A lot of them, like, for instance, will not, they're embarrassed by the fact that the sexuality and stuff like that bothers them, because they don't want to remember they were born in bed of a woman. What a shocking thing that is, you know, that they were in bed with a woman, even though it was being birthed. And my mother, at one period, Frank and I were doing a show called A Couple of Blackguards. Jana reminded me of it. And she came, we wrote this thing about ourselves. And we toured it. We were in Chicago and all over the place. We did it at Albany here in Maryland. And when we were first doing it, we were on the stage. My mother gets up in the middle of the first act. She was there. She was outraged because she had gotten this respectability disease. And she said, it wasn't that way at all. It's all a pack of lies. And I said, well, come on up on the stage and tell us your side of the story. I will not, she said. I wouldn't be seen on the stage with the likes of ye. I have a good name to maintain. I sat down.
concerned at some of your illicit international activities and delineate in the book the statute of limitations?
The gold smuggling to India? I don't know. Yeah, just the gold smuggling to India. Yeah. Well, I made 6 trips there, and it was a very strange thing. I was in the middle of, I was getting, my first wife had left me, and rightly so, because I was a terrible blackguard altogether. She did the right thing in retrospect, but of course I was so righteous at the time I thought she was all wrong to leave me. But anyway, I was a lunatic then, and when I was asked would I do this international trade, I said yes. So I used to smuggle this gold from Zurich to Bombay. And it happened with a guy who said to me, it involved travel, and I said, fine. And I wanted to travel, you know, geographical relocation was fine for me at the time. So when I got to Zurich, and he was a man with a cleft palate, and I'm not making fun of him, this was just the case. So he gave me this vest affair that had lots of pockets in it, and 20 kilos of gold in this. So he was running around me like a lunatic, you know, stitching the whole thing, and I had to take off. And then I dumped the thing in a closet in Rome and went off to the flesh pots of Dolce Vita, and then got on the plane and got to Bombay. And then I was supposed to ring up and say, he told me to say, when you get to Bombay, you ring him up and say your name is Hanjin Khan, and you call the Like Mine Trading Company. So I said, okay, the what? The Like Mine Trading Company. And then you're Hanjin Khan. Tell him I'm Hanjin Khan. That's right, he said. So I got to Bombay. It was Lord Krishna's birthday, 3 days. So I rang and rang and rang and rang. No answer at the Like Mine Trading Company. So finally on the 4th day, the phone answered. Hello, the Like Mine Trading Company? What can I do for you? This is Haji Khan. Yes, sir, what can I do for you? This is Haji Khan. I heard you, sir. What is the nature of your business? My name is Haji Khan. I was told ring you up and you would tell me what to do. Yes, sir, but now what is it you want me to tell you what to do, and how do you do it? I mean, what is it that you need that I can tell you what to do and how to do it? How am I going to deal with this? Then I got the idea. Haji Khan. Oh, Mr. Khan, why did you not say so? That's how it's. So that was my international trading thing. Well, I went back to Bombay this year with my son Connor, retracing my steps, and it was of the gold smuggler, and I just could not believe what I had done. The hand goes to the forehead and says, oh, God, did I do that? Did I go there? I traveled the length and breadth of India, drinking all the time, because you could get one thing an alcoholic can always get is drink, despite prohibition. So, but now it was good to do it sober. And I always visited Gandhi's monument because I had a love for that man, and I have a great love for India, even though I broke their laws, and for their people. It gets into your system, you know. So I went back there, and they did not arrest me. And so here I am. Yes, ma'am. You were yawning. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm keeping you awake. You were going to put out the light.
Do you have one more back there?
What?
Limerick appears to be in good shape now. How did it change so rapidly over 30 and 40 years?
Limerick, they got a university there. And that was an infusion of young people. About 10,000 of them have come there, so that's the economics of the city. And the economics of Ireland have changed. They have that Celtic tiger now, as they say, going very strong. It's the most economically forwarding people in all of Europe. So Limerick is just benefiting from all of that, and being members of the EC and all that. Shall I sing you a song? Yeah. Okay. Will you sing with me? Okay. Oh, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will build my love a bar by yon crystal fountain, and on it I will pile all the flowers of the mountain. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go, lovely? And if my love should leave, I would never find another where the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? One more time. And we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? Go to Margaret.
We have time to get some books signed, so by all means, come on up.
And confessions.
After this event, Malachy McCourt paused to sign books and talk with members of the audience.
There we are.
Thank you.
Thanks, love.
Hello.
Hello, love.
I have two. This is for my friend Laura.
Laura, all right.
And this is mine. My name is Sally.
Hello, Sally. Thanks for coming, love.
Oh, enjoyed it. Loved it. Also wanted to say thank you. I worked for Share Our Strength, and last Thursday you and Frank read his New York
you know,
for
yeah.
Writers' Harvest.
SOS, yes, we
Yes.
did indeed.
Yes,
Bill
heard it was a
Shore.
big hit, yes.
Met him the other night. What a nice man.
Yes.
And
Well,
you're doing
thank you.
great and God's work.
Oh, well,
and
thank
you for what you do.
Well, thanks for your help.
God bless. It was great fun.
Great. Well, good night.
All right.
Good trip.
Thanks a lot, love. Hello there.
I'm Valerie.
Hello, Valerie.
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, love.
Enjoyed the song.
Ah, yes. Yeah. It's a nice old song. God bless. How are you?
Hi, my Rita, my wife.
Teresa, sure.
Yes. Thank you for that. That was a marvelous scene.
Was that?
It was an absolutely marvelous scene.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very much enjoyed.
Is Rita with you?
Yeah, but she doesn't like to stand up.
Oh, yeah. I gotcha. God bless. Give her my love.
Hi.
How are you?
This is for my wife, Ann.
Oh, okay. Is there a knee on that?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Just sign.
Sure.
It was a great
God bless.
session.
Thank you very much.
You.
Could have been a doctor with that signature.
Oh, couldn't I? Could I ever? Yeah. Well, or a priest. This is fun.
For Susan.
Susan.
That's me. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have books that make you laugh out loud.
Ah. Susan, you have to amuse yourself, you know. We can't think you get
Even
so
if people on the
tight.
side look at you strange.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Susan. Hello, love. You were singing away there.
Yeah. Oh, that's that song.
Yeah.
To Geraldine.
To Geraldine, right.
When are you?
Malachy McCourt is now a writer and actor. His films include The Devil's Own, She's the One, and The Bonfire of the Vanities. His book, Among Swimming, is published by Hyperion Press. 114